Welcome everybody to today's European Days of Jewish Culture Inspiring Sessions. We are very excited to have you all here as we transition from the last year's theme of memory to this year's theme of family. Our session today is designed to help you, organizers and coordinators of activities, to navigate this shift with the expert guidance of our lecturer and friend, Luca Baraldi. Before we formally introduce Luca, I'd like to go over some important reminders about the processes for organizing an activity. Let me share my screen so that you can follow along. Okay, so basically what I want to show you is that if you go to our website, jewishheritage.org, that's the website of the APJ, and you click here in the menu, you will find the European Day section, and you go down and you will find the organize an oh, sorry, there's something in the middle, organize an event tab, then you go to current edition, and if you click on current edition, you will be able to visit the website dedicated to activity organizers and coordinators. If you scroll a little bit down, you will see here all the important links to organize an activity. First of all, the basics: register as an organizer to receive our exclusive organizers and coordinators newsletter. Then you can download the text about family that will inspire you a little bit about what kind of activities we can organize this year. You also have to your disposition the recordings of the sessions that we did in March. You have available the poster that you can edit, adapt to your needs, and of course download and print. And finally, the form to submit your activities to the official European program of the European Days of Jewish Culture. Finally, the reporting questionnaire is also available for the moment that you end and you finish your activities to report them. That is basically what I have to show you. Additionally, I'd like to share some exciting news I just received from the National Library of Israel. In the next 3 weeks, coinciding with the start of July, they will be releasing this year's exhibition, which you will be able to download, translate into your language, and print for your activities. We will inform you when it is ready through our newsletter for activity organizers, so be sure to be subscribed. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our esteemed lecturer for today and friend, Luca Baraldi. Luca Baraldi is an expert in cross-cultural analysis and strategic intelligence that has been involved in cultural analysis in the geopolitical field for over 15 years. He has conducted research on social imaginary making, on the relationship between politics and information manipulation, on strategic communication and business intelligence, and on religious radicalization and narrative theories. Since 2018, he has been working on the digital economy and the cognitive impact of artificial intelligence on society and culture. Today, he is a strategic advisor for numerous research centers and companies in the field of digital humanities, artificial intelligence, information manipulation, and conspiracy theories. Since 2005, he has been working on Jewish heritage, Jewish history, and the history of Jewish thought, in the field which he has given dozens of conferences at international level to promote the pivotal role of Jewish culture in the development of European and world culture, and has founded and promoted numerous initiatives for policy monitoring and prevention of anti-Semitic phenomena. He's a TEDx speaker. He deals with geopolitical analysis for the Atlantis magazine and cultural evolution for the Mangrovia magazine. He's currently writing a book, actually, on cognitive enhancement technologies, neuroethics, and the evolution of knowledge. With all this information today, Luca will guide us through the transition from memory to family, offering insights and inspiration to enrich our activities of the European Days of Jewish Culture 2024. Thank you all for your attention, and let's warmly welcome Luca. Dear Luca, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Federico, for the introduction. Thank you all for deciding to join us and to spend some time today afternoon just to try somehow finding some new doubts or inspiration about such a challenging topic. It is a great privilege to be here today. Some of you already know me, and it is, I think, the first time we meet for many other people. For many years, as you have heard, I have been dealing with the relationship between cultural evolution, social analysis, and to make a long story short, dealing with the impact of technological transformation. I will not use a PowerPoint presentation, but I will be more than happy to interact with you, and even more so to let you interact with each other after my short speech. My reflection has the only purpose or the only ambition of opening questions, somehow of reshuffling the cards or trying to question the meaning of concepts that we often deal with quite passively. If in the end I will have managed to make you open a new question, I will have succeeded in my aim. I will not talk explicitly about Jewish culture or Jewish memory, but I started from the ontological and cultural assumptions of a worldview that is based on the imperative to remember. And I won't talk explicitly about Jewish history, but I decided to build the entire reflection starting from Jewish conceptual systems. As always, I believe that this tradition, this history today can provide really pivotal interpretation skills for the time in which we are living. Today, as you will see, I will repeat some concepts over and over again, because I firmly believe that it is important to try to restore the non-rational and non-intellectual meaning of certain themes. Talking about memory is not just a theme of historical reconstruction or history theories, but rather a theme of how to find out a process of sense-making for historical events. Talking about family is not just a topic of social policy, but a topic of how to protect the profound and generative sense of individual intimacy in his or her small own social space. I would like to invite you to follow me beyond the hyper-rationalization of social analysis in some way. To reconstruct meaning, we must reclaim for the emotional dimension of history. I would like to start from the phrase, from the sentence by Paul Valéry that I included in the abstract of this lecture. Memory is the future of the past. Although it may seem like a simple linear sentence, it expresses the complexity of a vision of the world and of reality, which perhaps always accompanies us. Let's try to analyze it, breaking it down into portions. The first one, memory is the future. It may seem contradictory, I know, because talking about memory, which is the shadow of the past as a projection of the future, seems like a paradox. In reality, it says something very clear, which is implicitly a very strong message to us, which is part of our growth process and our way of acquiring, defining our identity. The present, what we are, is the result of what happened in the past. On the one hand, our past as individuals and as a part of a community and of a small community, our community of relatives, friends, and on the other hand, the past of the social, environmental, economic, and wider geopolitical context. What does it mean, however, to say that it is the future of the past? It means recognizing and enhancing the ontological, physiological, and cultural continuity of the temporal relationship between what has been and what will be. School books have accustomed us to imagining time as a line, as a linear sequence of events. We have somehow gotten into the habit of imagining history as a sequential concausality, as an infinite succession of cause-effect relationship, of which we can be simple spectators or decide to be accomplices. But if we try to change our point of view and to move our perspective one step to the side, we will see that this linear sequence, this line, is nothing more than the flat projection of a complex universe. Let's try instead to reimagine the historical perspective of time as a ray of light crossing a spectrum. On the one hand, on the one side, we have an incoming ray which passes through the prism, our present, our being here and now, and which breaks down into an iris of possible colors. History is not a sequence that unfolds, but a list of possible futures that unfolds. In this chromatic richness of the chromatic prism that opens lies the existential richness of our different possibilities of being or not being, depending on our ability to adapt, to learn, and to choose what we want to be and to become. Giovanni Pico, an Italian philosopher from the 15th century, one of the founders of humanism and historical philology, the real father and inspirer of the Christian Kabbalah theory, said that every person will be able to become more noble than the angels or more miserable than the beasts, depending on the choices he will decide to do. This decision threshold gives meaning to time and releases the value of the future. Memory, our ability to make sense of what has been and to re-semanticize it through the present, is the future of the past. Memory is the future of the past. On the one hand, we must focus on the challenge of memory as a lever for building our individual identity, and on the other, the slow, dilated time of a collective memory, which is a secular, historical, everlastingly changing memory of anthropological transformation. This tension between the urgency of an individual identity that try to answer the question, who am I today? How do I want others to perceive me? How do I want to represent myself in the world? And on the other hand, the big question, how do I position myself in history? How do I want to position myself in history? On the one hand, a fast individual time, a fast individual history, and on the other, a slow collective time. The fast time of memory is what leads us to define ourselves in a manageable, understandable space that can be digested in our daily experience. That is the geography of the relationships we live, of the memories and life experiences we come into contact with. Today, I am someone's son, I am someone's brother, I am someone's husband or partner, I am someone's father, I am someone's colleague, someone's student, someone's teacher. In this immediacy of relationships, I define my role and my individual identity. On the other hand, especially as we grow, once we leave or we have decided to leave the adrenaline of self-affirmation, we begin to question ourselves about our personal role in history, about the personal role we want to play within historical flow. We begin to ask ourselves what our way of inheriting the past is, and on the other hand, what our way of imagining the future is. The big question arises in this dynamic identity. In which space do my individual microhistory and the cosmosocial microhistory of the world in which I live meet? Where do microhistory, my individual history, and macrohistory, the social and global history meet? The family is the existential intersection in which time and space shape each other, give meaning to each other, reveal themselves to each other. It is the symbolic space that mixes the past and breaks it down into the plurality of senses, into the plurality of possible colors through the prism. It is the filter that gives meaning to time, which transforms the present from a sequence of contingent moments into a range of possible futures. When we talk about family, we must try to broaden the conceptual categories and question ourselves about the way in which our individuality enters the social dimension of the world. When we talk about family, we are talking about the way in which our time, the time in which we live, interfaces and breaks into the space in which we live. Family life is the action of history that shapes geography. It is the action of geography that shapes imaginaries. It is the action of imaginaries that shapes aspiration. And finally, it is the action of aspiration that shapes intentions. Let's try to retrace this sequence. Family is the action of history that shapes geography, that shapes imaginaries, that shape inspiration, that shapes intentions. History and the memory that represents it, to quote Valéry's words, expresses the future of the past. It is precisely here that the family takes on meaning, in the way it gives substance to the very idea of our being in the world. The family is at the same time the product of the society in which it lives, the microsocial dimension in which each of us was born and raised, and the co-creator of the history to come and of the society to come as well. When we talk about family, we are talking about the social dimension of our individuality, and at the same time, we're talking about the intimate dimension of our sociality. It is within the family space that our way of living, the experience of existence, learns, becomes contaminated, let itself be inspired, be guided, and slowly learns to acquire its own space of autonomy. Talking about the relationship between the family and social memory, collective memory, means trying to understand what are the registers of translation between languages that characterize the intimate daily life of each person and the tensions in relationship with the social context in which every one of us live. Let's try to break down and delve deeper into the evolution of the family dimension in its way of giving shape to the memory of the future. We have seen it before. The family expresses the action of history that shapes geography. Let's try to think about it. The family history of each one of us, especially in a context that has a very dynamic conception of roots, such as the Jewish social context, is a family history of movements, transfers, distant loves, or work choices that take you far away. It is the history of the search for new routes, the story of the search for new opportunities, or somehow the story of escapes from a social, economic, political context in which the condition for expressing one's freedom do not exist. Every family represents the story of a geography. Every family is the story of a shifting horizons, of changing perspectives, of changing and chasing time roads, of changing passports. Every geography is connected to a social, cultural, anthropological, religious context, which influences one way of thinking, which contributes to creating the architectures, the conceptual architectures we use to organize knowledge. In the diversity of geographies, in the diversity of places, different values take shape. Each value system finds different ways to interact with a religious and a cultural system, such as the Jewish one, which has very different symbolic, ritual, food, and mystical traditions. Even within Jewish history itself, geographies influence languages, influence symbols, influence rituals, even in a field that should tend to be more or less homogeneous, such as that of sacred rites. And instead, the stories of Jewish families over the centuries have spoken different languages, not only the language of the places where they went to live, but new contaminated, germinated languages that emerged from the context in which they lived. Yiddish, Ladino, Judeo-Italian, and thousands of other hybrid languages, which in the European, Mediterranean, and international context have led to the generation of new hybridizations of words, and with these new words, new symbolic systems. The history of social movements of families has shaped the space, and within each space has created different systems of representation. Proverbs change, humor changes, poetry changes, metaphors change. We've seen that the family is the space in which history shapes geography, and in which geography shapes the imagination. Every imaginary contributes to fueling and fostering the cultural and psychological system with which every society learns to relate and to interact to the world. In different cultural contexts, people learn to think differently. Certainly, there will be a more intimate macro-historical education within the family context, in which each person, each individual, each one of us has learned that what to consider important and what to consider less relevant in the hierarchy of events in everyday life. At the same time, however, each of us, despite being born into a specific family context, had to deal with the macroscopic social context with which he or she shared the everyday life. Let's imagine together two children, two brothers coming from the same family who go to live in two different places, two different countries. Let's say Saudi Arabia and Canada. Will certainly have different stories, not only at professional level, but at the same level of social relationship, of management of time, but also on a more intimate level, of the ability to read, to interpret the world, the ability to generate instincts and expectations. The diversity of geography generates diversity of imaginary, and the diversity of imaginaries fuels a diversification of aspirations. Starting from the family unit itself, the social-cultural context in which a person finds himself living changes the way of generating aspirations, of projecting an ambition for change into the future. Aspiration generates the diversity of intentions in the diversity of context. It could be transformed into a professional ambition, into a challenge of social utopia, into an ideal of civic struggle. It could become a form of activism, a vision for a political mission, or on the other side, it could become the vindication of a slow life choice in a very limited space. The diversity of possible ambitions, of possible futures, which allow every person to choose to become nobler than angels or more miserable than beasts. The social microcontext of the family that crosses spaces, which in spaces interfaces with geographies, imaginaries, aspirations, and intentions, is a story that gives shape to the chromatic prism of memory, of its opening up to a ramification of possible colors, of possible futures. This is the point of contact. The family can be conceived as the prism that breaks down the ray of light, that welcomes the apparently linear and homogeneous ray of light, the ray of the past, and transforms it into the potential for transformation, the potential for possible colors, for possible futures. Now, it is easy to understand that in the diversity of contexts, each family must deal with its own history, with the history of what it has chosen to chase, or with the history of what it has chosen or had to choose to escape from. Each family manages in its own way, in the intimacy of sharing, in the daily ritual of life stories, the wounds and successes that characterize existence. Each family chooses to manage emotions in its own way, certainly supported by the homogeneity of rituals, tradition, and common languages. But it will be each family in the balance of intimacy, in the lightness of domestic play, in the momentary right to sadness or gray areas in the way we face reality, to decide how to face existence. It will be in the intimate space of the family that the ideas, concepts, and categories with which we organize the complexity of reality take shape. Memory, in its macroscopic, collective, social meaning, is the selection of one or more of the possible projections of the footprints left by the past. Memory is the selection of what deserves to be remembered for personal, family, institutional, and social reasons. It is a selection. Memory is a selection of the shadows and footprints of what has already happened. We said it at the beginning. Each of us has a way of living in the present that somehow represents the projection of the choice of an identity or the attempt to express an identity. Each of us chooses what we want to be, how we want to be perceived, how we want to represent ourselves. We could talk for hours about each of these nuances. Choosing how to be and choosing how to represent oneself are two very different themes, as we see very well, for example, in the game of representations on social media. This choice of self-representation positioned in the present of immediate consumption interfaces with the legacy of an identity transferred from the past, which shapes our time and spaces, in most cases filtered by the history of our family. After what happened last October 7, the theme of the family or family ties as a driving force for the transformation of society has dramatically regained a central role in public opinion. It is not possible to reflect on memory without reflecting on the central role of family in the foundation process of society. It is not possible to reflect on history without reflecting on the humanity of the intimate core of the people around each individual who made history. It is not possible to talk about history only considering it as the aggregation of a series of individual memories. Each individual is at the center of a small or big network of relationships, but above all, he or she is someone's son, someone's brother or sisters, someone's father or mother. Humanizing memory means restoring the history of family intimacy of every single person. It is not only valid for history books or historical methodologies, but it is valid for self-awareness, for the choice of participation of every single person in the microscopic or macroscopic society in which we decide to take part. For this reason, today I would like to ask you to do a small exercise together. Everybody, please feel free to share or not to share, or just to leave it as a silent exercise. I would like to take just 5 minutes and to ask you to take a piece of paper and a pen. And I invite you to think of 3 words or 3 very short sentences that describe who you are. It can be something very, very practical. I am a son, I am an engineer, or something metaphorical. I am a bridge builder. And then I would like you to try to think of the word that best represents the flavor, the deepest sensation of domestic intimacy. It can be a recipe, a ritual, a song, a joke, anything. And finally, I would ask you to try to think on the word or the concept that you would like to remain as the cultural heritage of your family. 3 words to describe yourself, 1 word to describe the domestic intimacy of the past when you were children, and 1 word to describe the ideal legacy you would like to leave to your children or grandchildren, or simply to the generations to come. There are no right or wrong answers, but I think it is important to start over the memory as if it is were something really alive. The moment we have dehumanized memory or intellectualized it, we will have lost the ability to connect it to the deepest emotions. So please, I would invite you to take a few minutes. Federico, please help us to take the time, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, as you prefer. 3 words to describe yourself from a practical or a metaphorical point of view. one word to describe an emotion, a sensation, or a symbol, something that could represent the feeling of protective intimacy within our familiar space, and one word to describe what we would like to give to the future to come as the key concept or the key words which come from our tradition and our inheritance from the family.
Okay, so let's give 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. Do not hesitate to ask, should you have any questions or...
Yeah, could you just clarify number 2? 2's a bit unclear.
Yeah, just one word that you think could be the best word to describe the emotional dimension of family protection. Let's say like this. As a sensation or a remembering from the childhood.
So 2 minutes has passed, more or less. How continue, Luca?
Okay, so do anybody want to share one or more words? Please feel free to keep it secret.
I'm willing to go first.
Thank you, Deborah.
I don't know whether I've got this right, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. So I'll be the guinea pig. So my 3 words to start with are mother, daughter, and activist. The second one, if I've got it right and I've understood it, I've written Yiddishkeit. And for the future of what I want my family to be taking forward is authentic.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Actually, your choice of 2 words to define your identity as within the family space and the connection to Yiddishkeit as a very strong historical root, because actually Yiddishkeit is nothing but the expression within the familiar tension or energy for transformation. Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, thank you.
I see Nicolo here. He has unmuted himself. I don't know if you would like to participate.
Well, I am a bit confused actually because I am not Jewish, so I don't know how I can contribute to this debate, although very interesting. But you know, my role is limited by this fact, and furthermore, I have been out of the game for this edition of the European Day of the Culture, because I used to animate the festivals in 2 or 3 different cities in Sicily, but this year out, or because of the political situation in Israel, they asked to keep away from the European Day of the Culture. So I really am not very happy and in this situation, but all the same, I was very keen to listen to Luca's contribution, which is extremely interesting. And as a trained archaeologist and historian, he challenged me with reflections that all my life I never considered, you know. Luca, one day you will give me a list of your bibliography of books to read, because it deserves more than just a conversation, you know. Okay, I pass over.
Just let me, Nicolo, just punctualize that please do not feel at all excluded, or actually the contrary. Please feel invited to participate exactly in the wholeness of the opportunity to participate. We are a network in which we work with Jewish culture. We don't make any kind of distinctions or differences between the people doing it from the Jewish perspective or without being Jewish. Both ways are amazing. And very interested or worried about knowing more about your situation. Here, Deborah is actually suggesting that you may could organize some kind of online activity if you're not allowed to do it in person. It's a great idea.
Yeah, but maybe Nicola, we can talk about it just to better understand if we can do something just to create connection directly with the ministry, or we can try to manage it. No,
let's go back to the.
I just wanted to add one more thing, Nicola. Thank you for your active participation. I just want to puntualize that I'm not a Jew either. But I decided that it was even more important to take an active part in this activity for more than 10, almost 15 years, in trying to fostering the central role of Jewish culture as a key contribution for the evolution of European society, European democratic conception, and many civil concepts. And so I decided to somehow to take the responsibility, especially as a non-Jew, to try to face the social challenges, just because it is even more important to make people understand that it is not something strictly connected with the personal Jewishness or need to feel free to express a personal religious or history. It's something strictly connected with the deepest foundation of the evolution of society. And so it's not a theme.
Yes, indeed. If you allow me, you remind me an experience that I would like to share with you. As 20 years ago, I was charged by the regional government of Sicily to establish a Jewish museum in Palermo, the capital city of Sicily. And so I did, and as the news broke out and papers started to speak about a Jewish museum where was in the making in Sicily, I started to get a lot of letters by people who said or wrote to me, you know, my grandmother used to candle to candles on a Friday night. My grandfather said we were Jewish from origin many generations ago, and things like that. So I was very excited about the transmission of memory, family memory, in a region where no Jewish community existed since 5 centuries, And thereupon, I wrote an article for the Italian magazine of the Jewish communities, which is Rassegna Mensile di Israel, about my experience and about the many Sicilians who, after this museum experience and the celebration of the European Day of the Jewish Culture, converted to Judaism. And now we have in 3 main cities groups of Jews who are both ancient Jews and new Jews, who celebrated the holidays. And this is fantastic in a time frame of just 20 years. So I was very keen to listen to your experience too, and to the others, of course, too. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicola. We have somebody else who want to share the words.
Yes, please, I can. This is Uri. How are you, Luca? Good to see you.
Shalom, Uri, manishma.
Shalom. Excellent. Okay, so the first thing is what I wrote is me in relation to my ancestors. I see myself as another chain in a long chain of Jewish generations. Feeling is being proud of being Jewish, being Israeli. And what I want to deliver to my next generation is the menorah. This is the Jewish 7 reeds, because I think it's the nicest Jewish symbol, not the Star of David, because the menorah, it has also light. It also reflects tradition, and it also brings light to, and I think this is a very nice Jewish symbol. I think always light is also a sign of optimism. So this is what I chose. I hope it's fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I am happy to add my words as well. It's fine. I will define myself with, it's difficult with little words, but I will say that I'm a mix of cultures, that I have a big curiosity and but peculiar sense of humor. My memories from domestic intimacy are very specific. It's a Sunday dinner, and usually, everybody's tired from the weekend and a little bit sad that Monday is coming, and the dinner is usually very simple and basic. And my favorite one is what my parents used to call the volcano, which is a pile of rice with ketchup on the top. Really disgusting, but I used to love when I was a kid. And the legacy, the heritage I would like to keep for next generation is kindness. The sense of kindness is what makes me happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Federico. I don't know if I may. I would like to add one story when we met for the first time with Federico in Paideia in Stockholm. I don't know exactly the situation. He started to sing a traditional song from, I don't know, 2 centuries. Yeah, more or less a traditional song from the 18th century, the Italian tradition. I can't remember because
The polenta song.
The polenta song, because your grandfathers in Argentina got in touch with the Italians or something like that. I cannot remember. And so it made me think about this interdependence between family memories and geography, and the way we are continuously contaminated by the different stories that that overlap and they interact with all the others. Okay, thank you. And Dovrat wrote the Tikkum. Okay, now I don't want to steal your time, but I just wanted to invite you to make this experience in 2 minutes, but it can be managed in a very different way, in a wider way, just to make you reflect about the importance of our individual, let's say, small lives, life experiences, as a proactive, continuous contribution to the everlastingly changing process of creating public memory, collective memory. There is a very strict connection between our personal experience, which is well, quite often reframed by our familiar context in its interaction with the macro context where we live. So I had thought at first to offer you a more theoretical, higher reflection on the theories of memory, on participatory memory, on family sociology and historical analysis. Then I tried in some way to rehumanize the historians' theories on the important threshold between a European Day of Jewish Culture on Memory and a new European Day of Jewish Culture on Family. I looked for a point of contact. I didn't want it to be a theoretical point of contact, nor in any way to be like a reading of reality dropped from above. On the contrary, I wanted each one of us to be able to identify with the safe and protected space of domestic intimacy. And I wanted to have the opportunity to reflect on the imprint that family history has left on our existence and our coexistence with all the other people we live with. I wanted each one of us to have the opportunity to remember that even the ritual we have acquired was transmitted after being selected in our family context. And I wanted each one of us to have the opportunity to reflect on the fact that our ability to imagine and to envision the future depends on our family's ability to make sense of an evolved past. As always, I believe that the responsibility of Tikkun Olam is a great opportunity for the world as a driver of existential transformation, or simply as a restoration of individual responsibility for the future to come, but just within the conceptual and practical frame of the awareness of being now in the present, within the flow of the connection between the past and the future to come. Today we talked about memory, we talked about family, but in fact, without us realizing it, we are talking about what it means for us to protect the humanity of history in its continuous transformation. In fact, we are talking about what it means for us to give meaning to life. And sharing life with those who contribute every day to give us a reason to fight or to act, to play every day a different role, so that the memory of the future can be a memory of peace, of inspiration for the new challenge of rediscovering humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Luca. As usual, your lectures, your sharing of your vision, of your philosophy, of your poetry almost. It's so inspiring. You help us feel the theme with meaning and with sense. So thank you for that. Thanks to all of you as well for being present and participating actively today here. I would like to take the moment also to greet the board members of the APJ present here, Patrick Picard, Claude Bloch, Uri Barner. Thank you also for participating of the activity, and to all of you. We might have some more minutes if somebody wants to open any other point of debate or ask anything to Luca. If Luca, you're available, let's stay for 5 more minutes or so. Please feel free to unmute yourself and to.
I just wanted to say thank you. Luca, I've heard you speak before. I think you're unbelievable to listen to. And there's so much to unpack. And I'm not quite sure what I'm going to now do with the team at the Together Plan in terms of how we process that and create. There's so much we could do now, but because it's unbelievable, so much to unpack. And I hope, Federico, we can have the recording so that we can listen to it over and over and over. But it was fascinating, and thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Actually, I can share also the text. It's quite different with the references and links and I don't know, reading suggestions, but yes, thank you so much for your
No, the text would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Luca. Thank you, Deborah. Any other questions, contributions? I may have one question, actually, a very pragmatic one. You have been talking about how these rituals, how these traditions, how this familiar heritage also intertwines with our general European rituals, traditions, and heritage. How should we, or how would families make sure that those heritage, those rituals, those traditions are conserved, are become a memory, and how can communities help to that? Do you have any ideas?
It's a challenging question. Actually, I think that the idea that was at the basis for the Faro Convention was exactly this one: the need for reactivating the real social participation of communities, not only managing cultural heritage, tangible, intangible, doesn't matter, but to rehumanize the history of cultural heritage, not only as something that should be preserved. We're not living in an open-air museum. We should go back to a different conception of the agency of culture within our society, and so not to consider tangible heritage just as a part of urban plans or urban conservation strategies, but as something dynamic, something which is part of the symbology and the interactive scenario of our cities. And at the same time, intangible heritage is not simply something that should be recorded or digitalized just to be sure that in 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, we can look at it within a documentary. But it is something that should be considered within a living dimension. The ICROM a few years ago accepted the challenge of trying to face the problem of living religious heritage. And so to try to find the right balance between the need for practical use of heritage and rituals and the need for conservation. But I think that there should be something more. and the rehumanization, or I don't know, somehow the excess of, I apologize for this, but the excess of academia in reframing the role of culture somehow is contributing to make culture more weak or more fragile. And it is important to bring people and communities back to the core responsibility of managing and fostering and driving a continuous change in symbolic and social value of heritage. So from a very practical point of view, I think it is important to restore not the artificial conservation actions within families or communities, but the capacity of rediscovering the sense-making capacity of rituals. So rituals. Probably we should read the Shabbat by Eshel instead of reading some conservation manuals.
That is actually a bold answer and a bold affirmation coming from a person with a strong relationship with academy also. So thank you, Luca. Very, very inspiring. Do we have any other questions? Otherwise, I think Luca also is available for us easily. I think we can contact him if needed. I would like to thank you all again for your participation today, and very especially to Luca for your kindness and your generosity with us. Remember that you have all the processes to organize your activities in September in the website, and that the team of the APJ is also available for you for anything that you may need related to that. Have a wonderful evening, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.